What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Punk Rock Radar. Before we get into today's tier list, just want to give you a heads up what we've got planned for the month of October, because if you're a fan of pumpkin spice lattes and raking leaves, then we have great news for you, because all of October is our spooky, spectacular, terrible name, but great content coming. We've got Misfits tier list, we've got Calabrese tier list, and we've got our favorite horror punk albums. So if that sounds cool, make sure you're subscribed so you can catch all those videos starting October around 5th. We'll see. But today is Strung Out, where we've got 30 years worth of material to hit today. We've got 11 releases, 9 LPs, 1 EP, and 1 compilation. And as you can see, we've got a very special guest today sitting in for Matt. We've got Dylan, aka Screeching Bottle Rocket from DyingScene.com. How you doing today, man?
Awesome. Even better now that I'm here.
Yeah, we're stoked to have you, man. It's good to have a punk rock expert on here from Dying Scene. Super cool. And we've also got my buddy Lewis, show regular. How you doing, man?
You know, hanging in there. My cat is looking extra frisky, and he's right behind the computer, so he might make an appearance today. But I'm excited to talk about Strung Out, and definitely hear Dylan's views on this, because, we got a little bit of an age difference. I think it's going to be really interesting what our favorite albums are. So,
yeah, and I said this right before we started, but my prediction now is that Lewis and I are within one tier on every single album. I think we're going to have identical lists aside from 1S and 1A. That's my prediction. I'm saying it now. No idea, but let's just get straight into it. And because you're our guest today, I'm going to let you kick us off with your rating on this first album, Another Day in Paradise from 1994. What are you doing with it?
C tier. This is it's just an okay album. I really don't like the version on Spotify. It's got like 20 like random tracks that aren't even on the record. I don't know where they came from, but it's just all right. It's there's some signs of what's to come on the next 2 albums. Like Population Control is a really good song, and Mad Mad World, I think, too. But overall, it's pretty like disjointed. It doesn't like flow super well. So I would put this one in the C tier. It's just kind of a okay debut album, but it doesn't hold a candle to the later stuff that they've released.
Interesting. All right, Lewis, I see you've got a Link with you. Where are you guys putting this one?
Yeah, Link jumped in because he definitely wanted to voice his opinion. But I'm right there with Dylan. This is in my C tier as well. I think this is pretty good. You just clarified for me why I thought this album was super long as well. I don't remember it being this long, and I couldn't find my original CD, because I'm really old and I had all these on CD. But I was like, man, this is like pretty long. But yeah, like I said, you said Population Control is a pretty good song. I think there's definitely some inklings of what's coming in the next few albums that are going to be, spoiler alert, pretty popular for me. But yeah, John, I'm a C on this one. What about you?
All right, so my prediction's already wrong, because I'm going A for this one. I really like this album, and here's my context. Like, I feel like this is so different than a lot of the stuff that was happening in the punk rock scene at the time. Like, there just wasn't a lot of bands like fusing a lot of those riffs and solos in there. And I was reading, I've got the box set over there, part 1, where's part 2, part 3. And it was just interesting seeing that they played Soldano amps that are normally used for metal, just kind of capturing their own sound. So I'm putting this in A. I think it's underrated and one of my favorite debut albums. I say that every episode, but I'm saying it again now. So getting out of the way. So that's my A. I'm already off with my prediction for Lewis, but
we're not that far.
We're 2 tiers. I said not within 1. So wrong, but not too wrong. But Lewis, I'll let you take us into the next one, Suburban Teenage Wasteland Blues from 96.
Bring out your death. All right. Well, I kind of gave a little bit of a spoiler on this, but this is going to be my first S tier. This is the Strung Out that I really loved when I was, probably in my late teens, early 20s. I remember throwing this album in. I don't know. I think Solitaire is probably my favorite song. There's a lot of good songs in here, but I freaking love Solitaire, and I can listen to that any day of the week. This album just sounds so much more developed than the first collection of songs, and I think that's obviously the point. I mean, this was supposed to be like the big debut, right? I think. But man, this album just kicks it up sonically so much more. It's coming in as an S with a bullet for me. So that's my first S tier.
Well, all right, I didn't see that coming either. What about you, Dylan?
S all the fucking way, man.
What?
This like you said, I'm younger than you guys, so this album, I got this like when I got my first car. So, and I was the first like one in my like friend group to get a car. So everyone who rode in my car for like months got to hear this album. It was just always in the CD player. And I remember someone asked me, they're like, is this Green Day? And then I got really fucking pissed off that they would ask that, because I was like, dude, like I tried to explain to them, you know, like Strung Out is so much more technically proficient than Green Day. But, you know, it's like somebody, they think of like punk rock, and Green Day is, you know, that's the only band they know because they're the mainstream punk band. But yeah, this is my favorite Strung Out album. It's just they didn't go like full on into like metal infused stuff. It was mostly straight up skate punk, except for like I think was Bring Out Your Dead's on this record, right?
Yeah.
Bring Out Your Dead and maybe one or two other songs are more like straight up kind of like metal first and then skate punk second. But I think without this and Twisted, like I don't know that like modern skate punk sounds like it does. Like these albums are crazy influential. I put this one in my like top 5 all-time punk albums.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm not too far away from you guys. I'm putting this right next to the last one. I'm going A on this one. You guys mentioned my 2 favorites, Solitaire and Bring Out Your Dead. I think this sounds a lot like the one before it, so I'm surprised you guys both had that one in C. The difference for me sonically, it sounds like a little more like Fat Wreck. Like I hear the Fat influence more on this one, and I know that's kind of used as like an insult nowadays if you say a band's Fat Wreck, but I think for Strung Out it worked in their favor. So yeah, I'm going A on this one. But
that's one tier difference, John. We're back on track.
Yeah, we're back on track. 1 tier different from both you guys.
Can we review Green Day?
Have an opinion.
But yeah, Dylan, since you mentioned it already, I'm gonna let you take us into the next one here. Twisted by Design. What are you doing with it?
This is my second, and I guess since I had to take one out of the S tier, this is my other S tier album. After I heard Suburban, this is the second one. Obviously the second album I picked up from Strung Out. Like I said, they start to lean more into the metal side of things. I don't know what that song's called, but there's the one where there's just like the guttural vocals that like are completely indiscernible. That's the only song I don't really like on this album. But other than that, like this and Suburban could have been like a double album.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you could like take half the songs from each album and throw them on like a mixed track list, and they would both work perfectly together. They're just really fucking awesome albums.
All right, Lewis, what about you? Twisted by Design.
I'm right there with Dylan. So when I thought we could only have one S tier, I would have still picked Suburban Teenage Wasteland Blues as my S tier. This would have been my high A. This is going to take my other S spot. This is an excellent album. For all the points Dylan brought up, Too Close to See is such a good opener. Mind of My Own is obviously the song everybody knows. I think at least most casual fans of Strung Out, and I think it was probably the one that we listened to most of the time, like, you know, on those 5-minute rides from our house to the gas station or whatever, you know, like fill it out that time in your car. But yeah, this album is great. I think it sounds a little bit more developed and produced than the previous album. It just doesn't have the same hits for me. But still an excellent album and definitely paving the way for the future of the band. So John, what do you got on this? Is this your first D? Are you going with the hot take?
I already put it up there because this was like a foregone conclusion. I think that it's probably my favorite. I got one other S, and you guys know I like to have a sleeper S tier, but I'm definitely not going against the grain on this one. I think this is their best album by far. All the songs you guys mentioned, and then Virginia Madison, I have to shout out that one. Ultimate Devotion, Reason to Believe. Just like almost every song on this album is beloved, and there's a reason for it. So yeah, I'm going right with you guys. This is an S tier album. There's absolutely no debate whatsoever from me. So now I included this next one here, Element of Sonic Defiance, even though it's an EP. So the reason I included this is because I think this is the real shift in the sound. I think this is the sound they kind of carried over like all the way to like present day. And like Dylan said, you can kind of hear that sound maturing on the last two. But for me, this is like full in. This is the strung out sound. So I thought it was important to include it here. But Lewis, where are you putting the EP?
I kind of bounce back and forth on this one. So, I mean, it's got a lot of good songs on here. And obviously Mephisto is like a really good song. Although I have a theory on that, is that most people just like the first minute 15 of Mephisto and the rest of the song is just okay. That's my theory on it. Although the beginning rips really hard. I think this is a bit of an uneven EP, but it still has so much nostalgia for me that I'm going to put this one into B. I think they could have easily kind of fleshed this one out, and this could have been a really interesting full length, all said and done. Maybe kind of reordered the tracks and kind of reworked it a little bit, because I don't really like the first track. I think that really throws me off. But otherwise, a really solid album. So it's a B for me with everything in perspective.
All right, Dylan, what about you?
I got it a little lower. This is my second C tier album, or an EP, I guess. I agree on this should have been a full length album. It's like 20 something minutes long. Like,
yeah,
you have 2 more songs and it's a full length album. I'm really big on production, which is weird because I listen to punk music. But the production on this EP is like, it's really weird. Like, it's really noisy, and it's kind of like the vocals are kind of buried. So there's a few songs I really like Every Day and Jackie O are really good songs, but the production just kind of makes it hard for me to listen to this. Like, it gives me a headache almost trying to listen to this all the way through without any breaks. So I have this in my C tier.
All right. See, I agree with both of you. I actually had this in my C tier, and then I moved it up to B. Today, I had a late album that really fell, like an album that's coming up pretty soon that started in A and is ending in C. But yeah, like you guys said, it's a little bit of an uneven album. It could have used like a little more cohesion, but I respect that it's like the transition to this era of strung out. And the next album is the first like fully fleshed out full length that we get, that they really have that sound. So Dylan, I'll let you take us into American Paradox. What are you doing with that one?
Yeah, so you mentioned it a few times already, the change in the sound. And I think part of that, obviously, Jim Cherry died, so they lost a songwriter. Because he wrote a lot of the stuff especially on the 2, like, they're really big albums. So I think that was the biggest change, was the songwriting was handled a lot more by other members of the band. This is my first A tier album. Again, the one thing that kept this out of my S tier, really, when I thought we could have 3, was the production. It's just a little off. Like, I feel like the vocals especially could have used a few more takes on some of these songs, because Jason's just kind of like out of key at some points, and it's kind of throws me off a little bit. And overall, like, the instruments just sound a little off. Like, it doesn't sound as high production as the previous 2 albums, which is odd to me. But with that said, like, top 5 strung out songs, one of them for me, and this is weird because it's like one of their slowest songs, is Satellite. I really like that song for some reason. And And there's a few other songs on here, like I think Cemetery. That's a really good song. Overall, it's a pretty good album. It's not as good as the two that preceded it, but definitely strong in the A tier for me.
All right, Lewis, where are you going with this one?
So yeah, I'm with Dylan on this one. This is a pretty good album. I'm a little bit lower. I'm going to put this into the B tier. For all the reasons said. I mean, for me, the reason it doesn't kick out of that range is because like there's a lot of good songs on here, but to me they kind of blend together. I'll be honest, I'm definitely going to be a little bit biased to later Strung Out. I'm just going to kind of say it, but there's a couple albums that definitely stood out for me. This is kind of getting into that 2000s, what I like to call emotionally manipulative music, if that's, I don't know if there's another term for it, but they're really starting to show. They're really starting to show their cards here with, I don't know. It's just it's the music becomes about the feelings and stuff, and that wasn't really something I thought about before I was hearing about bands like Thrice and how technical these guys were and how impactful the songs were hitting. I'm going to go on a random tangent here, John, and it's bands like this and these albums that sort of always make me connect electronic dance music and hardcore and post. Do you not want me to go on this tangent?
Go for it. We've already started tumbling down the rabbit hole, so we got to poke out somehow. Go for it.
I'm just saying. I know music's supposed to make you feel something, but we grew up with a whole slew of kids that music became like this whole big, deep emotional thing for it. And it was bands like this that totally discolored me to that and like made me a little annoyed in music. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. Don't shake your head. And we were just kind of in there for the good times. Emotionally manipulative, good album. It's a B. I'll leave it there. I'm not going to explain myself anymore, but I will give them a little bit more credit as more albums come up. So it is a good album. It's shallow deep. Let's say that.
All right. Well, you don't need to explain yourself to me because I'm putting this even lower than you. I'm putting it in the C tier, which is, I used to love this album when it first came out. Like, this was one of my favorites. One of the first ones I actually got when it came out. But like now, like when I listen back to all these today, I just didn't find myself connecting to the songs the same way. Like they did kind of all bleed together. Whereas like these first four albums, there's songs like I immediately like connect with, that I remember, that are standouts. And I just feel like this kind of all is on the same wavelength. I didn't know when the songs were ending and starting. So for that reason, just for the lack of standouts, I'm going to put it in C. But Lewis, what kind of rabbit hole is Exile and Oblivion going to take you down?
It's still continuing the same feelings that I have about Strung Out in general, but this is a better album. More standouts. It's crisper, it's cleaner, and I think it's a much better listen overall. So with that in mind, this one is still going to be a B, but it is a higher B. So I'm going to give it a B plus. But honestly, this sounds like the best album Thrice ever put out, is kind of my thoughts on it. Like we're getting to a period where like these bands really were going for a similar sound, and they still all kind of blend into me. I like this one better than a lot of those bands making this style of music at the time. I think it's really interesting. I think it would be a really good case study to see how Strung Out's music has evolved over the years with the various trends in music as well. I feel like they were always kind of on the cutting edge of stuff too. But yeah, I'm a B on this, John. What do you think?
You made some good points, Dylan. What about you? Where are you putting it?
I am in the same column, B, for different reasons. So first, this isn't an album I go back and listen to very often. This leading up to this video was the first time in a while I've listened to it. I think it's probably one of their more metal-oriented albums. Just the cover art kind of leads us on to that. I also think it's probably one of the top three as far as Strung Out's most polished albums go. I think Analog's probably one of their biggest like single type songs with a music video. I think it has a music video.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's an all right album. It's not one I go back and listen to very often, just because I'm not big into the metal side of things. I'm more into the skate punk stuff. But it's aight.
It's aight.
Yeah.
Analog is like the number one song at like Touch Tunes most of the time, by the way. So it is definitely super popular.
Yeah, it's got 7 million plays. I didn't see any Strung Out song coming in with 7 million plays. But yeah, I'm exactly the same boat I was with the last one. I'm going one below you guys. I'm putting this one in C also. And I'm surprised both of you guys have it in B, because I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure that this is like pretty well revered in like the Strung Out community. And you guys who know me out there are going to be a little surprised, because this is the album that enticed me to get my Strung Out tattoo, you know, the Molecule, real original, I know. But this is just another album that I just don't really listen to anymore. Like you guys were saying, like for the time it came out, it was great. Like this, like Lewis was saying, I loved Artist in the Ambulance thrice. I think this is kind of in that same genre, but I just really don't vibe with it anymore. And part of that is because to me, this feels like almost two different albums. Like the first half is very American Paradox sounding, and then the second half kind of feels like Sonic Defiance, Twisted by Design B-sides. Like I have no idea how Anna Lee got on this, because it sounds absolutely nothing like the rest of the record. It sounds like a song that was left over. I like the song. It's actually one of my favorites on here, but it just does not fit in whatsoever with the rest of the album. So I'm putting it in C. I still like this album. I still like American Paradox, but we're not really hitting my B, A, S albums quite yet. We'll get back there in a little bit. But Dylan, if you want to move us into the next album, another one with questionable album art, we've got Blackhawks Over Los Angeles. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, Jason with his album art, man, he's doing some weird shit.
Yeah.
From this point on. First of all, let me correct you. It's not called the Molecule. It's called the Astrolux.
There you go. Yeah, I call it the atom, the molecule.
Molecule. Okay. This is my second B tier album, and it's a real, to quote Anthony Fantano, it's a light B. It's an extremely light B. I'm being very generous.
Yeah, you are.
B tier. And I think generally this is like considered Strung Out's worst album. Talking about album art, I put it in the same column as Bad Religion with the New America, like just fucking awful album cover. But yeah,
John's favorite Bad Religion album.
No, it's not.
There's a few decent songs, but like the stuff that's bad is like really bad. Like Dirty Little Secret, like that's a fucking terrible song. The only songs I like really like, and again, one of them's probably the biggest Strung Out song is Calling. If you go on YouTube, that's like their most viewed YouTube videos, the Calling video, which is really cool. It's like really thematic and stuff. That song, Mission Statement, and Diver. Diver is really good. It's like, I think it's the fastest song in this album. Those are really the only songs. Like, I'll go back and listen to it, but like the only songs I really pay attention when they're on are those ones. It's just not a very good album, but I put it in B tier for some fucking reason. I don't know.
Yeah, you're really shocking me with the B, putting it above ones you seem to like. But Lewis, go for it. What do you think of this one?
I'll get it back on track and go with a D. How about that?
There we go.
So, I mean, I don't really like this album. I do agree. Calling is pretty good. You could obviously, though, look at these numbers. Like, I know it's the single or whatever, but that is like not good retention from your title track going to the rest of the albums. So like they're like 6 million plays and like, yeah, that was pretty good. And they get to the next one, they're like, well, this is fucking shit. But No, I'm going a little hard. It's not a great album. It's probably a good album for many bands. I don't think it's a good strung out album, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's definitely listenable. For me, it's like, D's the name of the game, but I still like this album fine, but it is definitely in my lower tiers. John, what about you?
I'm right there with you. I'm D all the way with this one. Dylan called out the most egregious example of bad strung out songs, which is Dirty Little Secret. Yeah. They're no All-American rejects, that's for sure. But yeah, this is a D tier album. It's not bad. This to me just screams like something you would hear blasting in a South Carolina pickup truck or something. It just doesn't feel like a strung out album to me. It's like this was their shot at like radio rock. And I like some radio rock, but I just don't like this album at all. But there's one coming up. What was that?
I remember like Zebrahead almost.
Oh, I love Zebrahead, man. That's one of my guilty pleasures. But yeah, there's one more album coming up that I actually like less than this one. But spoiler alert, it's not the next one we're going to do, Lewis, which is going to be the Prototypes and Painkillers compilation album that came out in 2009. I kind of sprung this one late on you. What are you going to do with it?
For me, Prototypes and Painkillers, I'm fine with putting this in a C. And you know why? I'm going to take Matt's stance on this, that it's a compilation, right? Or it's a split, whatever his line is, but it's not a full length. It's not a full vision. I think it definitely has some good songs. And plus, you told me about this like 25 minutes ago. And while I've listened to the album, I didn't have proper time to put it in scope. So we're going to give it a C, a full average. I doubt I hate it more than Blackhawks over Los Angeles. So I'm going with a C, John.
That's a safe bet. Yeah, you're a smart man. Dylan, what are you doing with it?
This was in my C tier until I discovered that I was not allowed to have I had to have two D tiers. So I moved it down to the D tier regretfully. It is pretty good as far as compilation albums go. I really like the B-sides, especially the American Paradox B-sides, and I really like the Ozzy cover. I don't listen to much Ozzy cover bands, but for the ones that I have listened to, I think Strung Out does Ozzy the best. The thing that kind of gives me some pause to give this a better rating is the demos and the Descendants cover. I just feel like the audio quality isn't good enough that they were worth including on it. They're just so much. It's like you put a YouTube video in like 144p and the rest of it's 1080p. Like it just sounds like garbage.
Yeah, I think they could have cut it at track 13. Like Barfly is a great song, but we've already got it. But yeah. I actually like this one, especially when I listen to them in order, and this is kind of like a nice breakup between like the later discography, because we get like a little taste of the early stuff. The one thing I don't like about this, well, I don't know if I like it or not, I haven't decided yet, but like the sequencing on the tracks, it seems to go like this was 94, this was 2002, then back to 95. It was like all over the place. Like this album is just constantly on shuffle, whether you have it on shuffle or not. But I find myself listening to this one still. So I'm going to go B. I feel like my list is like not looking too great. I did this earlier today, but I'm sticking with B. I like compilation albums. I like to hear like demo versions and alternate versions and B-sides. That kind of stuff's interesting to me. But all right, so we got that one out of the way. Now we're back on track with the LPs. We've got another one with particularly terrible album art. In my opinion, the worst album art of all the Strung Out albums. So Lewis, what do you?
Is this the one with the penis gun?
This is the penis gun, the mirror, like image. I don't know what is going on here. I just know that it's not a good album art.
Well, thank God that they can make music better than album art, because I think this is a significant improvement over the past few albums. I really wanted to dislike this album. I think we kind of talked about this, but man, I really think this is a pretty good record. And it kind of balances, it kind of brings back some of the stuff I might have been missing from the band with a little bit more melodic things going on. So this is my feelings on it. I'm going with an A. This is going to be Agents of the Underground. I found myself going back to this album quite a bit while I was reviewing this. So I'm an A on this one. So I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say.
Yeah, your A tier was completely blank. I was wondering where they were going to start coming in. But Dylan, what are you doing with this one?
Yes, dude. A all the way on this one, man. The cover art is irredeemably bad. But yeah, this is such a good album, man. Going back to my top 5 Strung Out songs, Andy Warhol, all the fucking way, dude. One of my favorite Strung Out songs. I will say, I keep harping on production. The production's a little weird, and I've heard members of the band talk about it. The vocals especially are incredibly overproduced. I feel like out of necessity. If you've ever seen Strung Out live, you probably know what I'm talking about. But dude, Andy Warhol, Car Crash Radio, Ghetto Heater, the title track. This is a really good album. It's like their most, I would say their most skate punk album since American Paradox. Not a complete return to form, but awesome album. Definitely A tier.
Oh my God, Car Crash Radio is so good. I love that song. Dom, what are you gonna do? We were just blowing this album. So what are you gonna do to it?
Well, I'm gonna keep it. I'm not gonna be blowing it, but I will be stroking it a little bit. I'm gonna put it in the B tier, because I think this is a big step up from the last couple, and all the songs you guys have mentioned are great. Jackknife is my favorite on here. Neither of you guys mentioned that one. But I'm subtracting for the album art because it is so terrible. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned their live show because. Lewis, I don't know if you remember the last time we saw them. We were, I think it was Irving Plaza. This was a while ago. This may have been like 2007. Both of us were like, "Wow, that was pretty bad." Like they didn't sound anything like the albums. I hate saying that.
I don't even know I don't even really remember the show, but I don't doubt that I was there. But it does sound vaguely familiar. And I remember being disappointed for at least the time I saw them. So
I just remember that the guitars were so loud, which I usually like, but that's all we heard. Like we weren't even like near like the sides where the amps were. We were like center. And all it was just like this shredding like of guitar.
Yeah, they should. I remember that show now. I was like, one time I wish I had brought like earplugs,
Best guitarist in punk rock, gentlemen.
They're great, and I totally appreciate what they do. But it was like an assault. Like I wasn't in my 30s yet. Like where now I'm like, oh God, like it's too loud. We were like mid to late 20s, so we didn't care about getting blasted with terrible music. But it was over the line of like extreme volume.
It's probably why I have tinnitus. This show in particular.
Dude, I think everyone who's ever been to a punk show has tinnitus.
Yeah. All right, but yeah, Agents of the Underground. We're all on the same page here. We're all in B or A. It's a great album, and I'm gonna take us into this next one here because I think I've got a little bit of a surprise because this is my second S album. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but. For me, this sounds like the spiritual successor to Twisted by Design. I hear a lot of throwbacks on here. Nowheresville, Animal and the Machine, great songs. This sounds like 2002 Strung Out should have been. And this is the one I listen to most nowadays. That's why when Twisted by Design came on, I was like, maybe this is my favorite because this is my other contender. And I never hear anybody talk about how good this album is. And I think that's a real disservice to it because Rats in the Walls, Rebellion of Snakes, Animal and the Machine, Spanish Days, Nowheresville, some of the best songs they've wrote in like the last 15 years. So with all that said, I am putting this in my S tier. This is probably my favorite Strung Out album. I don't know if that's sacrilege or not. Dylan, I'm curious what you have to say about this one from another generation. How do you feel about this one?
I hold this album in very high regard as well. retrospectively because it was Jordan Burns' last album he recorded with Strung Out. And I don't know if you guys listened to the Talking Records podcast, but Jordan Burns was on an episode of that podcast, and he said that this was his best studio performance with Strung Out, and I'm inclined to agree with that. The drums are definitely the high mark of this album for me. I have this one in my A tier. I would have put it in my S if we were allowed 3 S's, but we're not because the rules are fucked.
My rules coming into play a lot in this episode.
But this is I said that Agents wasn't their true return to form. This was definitely Strung Out's. I'm foreshadowing a bit. They're very short-lived return to form on this album.
Dylan, there's a reason why all of us have a spot left in D. I could see that, but
yeah, man, it's such a good album. The production is on point. The sequencing is great. I like the kind of like concept album elements to it, like playing off the album title to have the radio transmission type stuff going on in the intro. You mentioned Nowheresville. I think that's probably one of the most like blatant examples of like fan service in punk rock, where a band it stands out from everything else because I'm pretty sure they set out to record a song that sounded like what people consider classic Strung Out to be, but it works. It's a really good song. Yeah, definitely A tier, A++ tier for me.
Right on, man. I'm glad to hear that. And Lewis, you've only got a spot in A and D. So you're either going to break my heart or we're all on the same page with the last one. What's it going to be?
Well, you guys just talked about this album for like 5 minutes. So yeah, it's going to be an A, hard A for me. I don't have much else to add that you guys haven't said. All the reasons you said, this album's great. This was one that I really enjoyed spending a lot of time with again, because I hadn't really listened to it since it first came out, And this, I think I drafted this one when we did the Fat Wreck draft.
Yeah, you did. So, you stole it from me.
I did. And it was like one of my dark horses, like that you didn't think I was going to go after. I was like, I'm getting that Strung Out. Fuck John. And I did. And that was great. And I'm still enjoying that victory today. Hard A. Should I just go into the D here? Because we all know what it's going to be. All right, so this is the Horse album by Strung Out, or whatever it's called. That's what I always called it. All right, so I don't know exactly what to say about this album, except that like if somebody put this on for me, I would have no idea what band this was off the first track. Is that bad to say after we just reviewed like 11 albums by this band?
It's accurate, man.
So confused, and I'm throwing this on, and like I understand people grow, and like I guess the lead singer, he's like considers himself an artist, right? You know more about the band than I do. That's pretty cool. Like this album sucks. Like it felt like it was just, I don't know. I felt like I was listening to a mashup of like the late 90s or like get some grunge in there. Like I was like, what the fuck is this? Where is Strung Out? And like this came out during the pandemic, right? Or pretty close.
2019. So there's no excuse. Right, they don't have an excuse. Yeah.
So they laid this bomb, and then we all had to get stuck in our homes with it for 2 years. So that is what Strung Out did to us. But I'm obviously being really hard. I mean, this album seemingly is pretty well produced for what they're trying to do. I could say on a surface level, I like some of the songs, but comically, I don't really like this album that much versus everything else they've done. So it's definitely a D for me. Sorry, I went a little hard on it, but yeah, it's a pretty mediocre album. That's all I have to say about it.
All right, Dylan, do you have anything nice to say, or you want to bash it too?
Oh, dude, he didn't go in on it enough, man. This album fucking sucks.
Yeah,
it's terrible. This is one of the few cases of buyer's remorse I've had was pre-ordering this album. And it was off the assumption that it would be something as good as the last one. I don't know, dude. They put out a fucking awesome album, and then they come out with this. It's just so fucking bad, man. Like, there's no songs that I like know by name. Like, it was a laborious task trying to go back and listen to this in preparation for this. Like literally every song I skipped to the next one after 30 seconds. So Jordan Burns isn't in the band anymore. They got this new drummer. I can't remember what his name is, but I do remember leading up to this, everyone was singing his praises. He's a fucking awesome drummer. This album, and especially the drums, it's just so safe. Like, it's just so fucking boring, man. There's nothing like exciting going on with like arrangements or anything. It's just really boring. The vocals are terrible.
Yeah. Oh,
like
God.
It doesn't. It sounds so. I don't know. It sounds like fucking like Gumby is singing or something. I don't know, man. It's fucked up. So
I should have mentioned that. Yeah, the vocals are terrible on this album.
Yeah, it's just weird sounding. It doesn't sound like Strung Out. But yeah, D tier definitely, easily. This was the easiest album for me to pick a tier for. And I think it was the first one I picked a tier for. It was just so fucking bad.
Yeah, so I'm not going to go too far into it. There's not much left to say, but this is the one album I didn't listen to again when we did this list, just because I knew it was going to be a D, and like the writing on the wall was there. Like, I'm not sure how you guys feel about acoustic albums, but after Blackout the Sky came out, you kind of knew that they were going to go in this weird direction. I just didn't know it would be this bad. After Transmission.Alpha.Delta, like to just fall this hard and to take 4 years to fall this hard, it was just, a slap in the face to all the fans out there. I hope this isn't the last thing we get from Strung Out, because this is I don't know if it's forgivable or not, how bad it is.
I want my $18 back, Fat Mike. Fucking Christ.
Yeah, I'm surprised like Fat Mike even put this out. Like, he seems to have no problem telling bands when an album sucks.
I think with the legacy bands that have been on the label for a really long time, maybe they have a hard time saying no,
Yeah, I mean,
this could have came out like on Epitaph. Remember that? Does that label even exist anymore? But that was where they would just stick all their weird shit.
I think all of Epitaph is anti now, so they don't need it.
Anti of 2006.
But yeah, guys, those are our lists here. Looking at it, I don't feel so bad anymore. But Lewis, if you had to move one thing, if there were no rules, what would you end up moving?
Oh man, I might. Oh no, I might kick up Exile. I could have moved it up. I do like that album quite a bit, even though I kind of went down the conspiracy. Crazy person writing a manifesto with shit on the walls type thing.
Emotional manipulation. Yeah, you turned emo you added manipulative onto emo music.
I'm telling you, I'm telling you, this whole theory makes sense in my head. It's very hard to explain. It's not really a theory, but
the subject matter is pretty shallow, in my opinion.
Say that one more time.
The subject matter on most of those songs is pretty shallow. It's like, kill your scene, like
right. And they're using the music to try to get you to believe more into it. Maybe that's what I'm trying to get at. It's a really weird thing, and it's mostly like for me, these albums really blended into that music of the time. Where it was like the rise of the post, the really hard emo bands were coming up and that stuff. So they kind of just get into that mold where I'm just like, oh, fucking more of this shit. But they're good albums. Mostly. So I might have kicked that one up a little bit because I like Strung Out. So John, what about you?
So for me, my B tier got way too crowded. I would have Exile in the B with these, and I could probably still do this because it wouldn't have violated any rules. But like I said, I did this right before we started. But I like Agents of the Underground, but I don't like it as much as these two. That's what prevented me from doing it. But my crowded B tier is the only thing that messed me up. I would, if I had one move, Agents up, Exile up. But overall, like I feel pretty good about how this ended up. And Dylan, I know that I played Rule Master on you. I made you pull Transmission out of S. Now that I know that was the move, I feel even worse about it. But was there anything else that you would move?
I'm gonna take Songs of Armor Devotion and put it in the fucking basement. It's an F. Fuck that album.
We're skipping over E and we're going straight to F.
Just here. There you go. It's gone. It's gone from memory. But yeah, guys.
Can we take a vote here though? What is the best Strung Out album art? We shit all over the bad ones. What do you guys think is the best album cover?
Suburban's good, yeah. But I like Twisted by Design the best. I like that 70s aesthetic. I mean, it's still not great. Like, there's a little too much red on it, but overall, I think it's got a cool logo. So I'd go Twisted.
I think I'm there too. They're very into faces, aren't they? Now looking at things, a lot of faces on their albums.
No. Agents of the Underground is easily the best cover art.
The penis gun is what we all need in our life.
I never thought about that until you guys said that shit. I just thought it was like a corny like microphone.
It is a microphone, but I mean it's like a robot penis. So I mean it's there you go.
It's so the thing that's worse. The worst thing about it to me is that it's just a mirror image of like it makes no sense. I don't get it at all. Like there's probably some artsy reasoning behind it, but it's super lame.
On three straight studio albums, and then they did it also on like Prototypes is kind of the same thing, and then the acoustic thing. They're all like that mirrored image.
Dude, you're blowing my mind. I'm just noticing that now.
Yeah, they do a lot of mirror images.
It was very easy for me. Let me elaborate on why I like the cover art for Suburban so much. So it's just like I don't know. You look at the picture and like you could probably guess like the album title is something to do with suburbia. Like it's just like such a good like conceptual image. Like it looks like what you think of when you think of like 60s like suburban like Americana kind of shit, you know?
Yeah, that's
John, can you do me one?
Yes, sir.
Can you do me one favor and just blow up the cover for Exile and Oblivion?
Exile and Oblivion? Yeah, hang on. Is this big enough or you want it full screen?
I guess it's lagging for me. I'm not seeing it, so.
Hold on. Exile and Oblivion. That's the little sad girl, right? Just bleeding out of her mouth, or is she eating something? I can't even see it.
I just wanted a picture to go along with emotional manipulation, so there it is. So, I'm just kidding. So.
Yeah, I don't like that cover either, especially if you had it on CD. They had this like the booklet. It was like split down the middle, and I don't remember what it opens up to, but that just annoyed me that like it had this fucking seam in the middle of the in the cover.
I don't hate this album art. It's like kind of like anime to me. I don't know. I have no idea what's happening. I don't know if she's eating something or she's bleeding out of her mouth.
You're just supposed to think this album is deep when you start it. I don't know. That's the way I feel about it. But I like
14 and deep.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, but yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Now, guys, those are our tier lists. Let us know in the comments below whose list you like best, who botched it. I know I botched a few things on here, but if anyone else did, please let them know so I don't feel left out. But like I said, we've got our spooky spectacular. Is that what I call that? I don't know. If you have a better name for the October thing, please put it down below. I really don't want to call it the spooky spectacular, but we're going to be doing Misfits tiers, Calabrese tiers, and horror punk tiers, maybe a few others mixed in. So if that sounds cool, like I said before, please subscribe. It helps out the channel. And with that said, thanks again to Dylan from DyingScene.com. And thanks again to Lewis for doing this with us. And we'll see you next time.